It was a typical hot, humid, upstate New York summer's day for the 800 residents of Westernville. A sleepy, historic town just to the northeast of Lake Delta. Nestled between New York State Route 46 and the Mohawk River. There's a mini market with gas pumps, a ski slope, a Christmas tree farm, a library, a firehouse. There are no traffic lights in Westernville. Just a stop sign at the corner of Main Street and the Stokes-Westernville Road. And the town hall has stood guard at the intersection of this community's two streets for over 100 years. The town hall building, originally a hotel in the neighboring community, was moved to Westernville in 1912, when New York State flooded the little village of Delta to the south by constructing a dam across the river to create a reservoir, Delta Lake, as a feeder for the Erie Canal. The Presbyterian Church steeple had kept watch over the people and their affairs for more than 200 years, and also over those whose final resting place lay just behind it. A crossroads community to which settlers came in the late 1700s, drawn by the rich, fertile soil and abundant water. Westernville boasts a score of historic homes, including the magnificent home and burial place of the famous Revolutionary War general and signer of the Declaration of Independence, William Floyd. On July 8, 2021, the people of Westernville were going about their business. Business as usual on a fine summer day.
My son and his two sons, ages 11 and 9, were up here from North Carolina, where they live, and we were just doing what granddads and grandkids, and I don't think we did anything special that day, played in the yard and so forth. So it was just it was a nice day. It didn't turn sultry until later. It was a nice day, and we just sort of, hung out around the house. We didn't go anywhere that day, and yeah, it was just a normal day of a great visit from the grandkids.
That day I was working in the greenhouse and in the garden center and in the main flower shop, so I was bouncing around like always.
Just doing everyday things, Oh, it was just kind of like it is today. The sun was shining. It was pleasant. They had predicted some thunderstorms.
Yeah, I would, a humid day. We were working on the farm. It was just kind of hot, and, the leaves were telling you a storm was coming, but nothing out of the ordinary. I don't remember, any kind of advance warning saying that we're going to get a really severe, wave of thunderstorms coming through. And we were kind of looking towards the relief because it was just hot, and we, usually when the storms roll through, you get, a little temperature relief. And yeah, so it was just a typical day.
But as daylight faded and the darkness crept in, the day was to turn anything but typical.
The tornado touched down in Westernville, New York. Rating F1, estimated 105 miles per hour. Path length 2.16 miles. Touchdown time 7 p.m. Daylight time 29 daylight time. Start rapid stock 14.6 door north, 75.9 west. And rapid stock 14.6 75.7
the storm hit, and it was kind of funny. We're only probably a half a mile away or a third of a mile away really from the main street, and we didn't have anything out of place or anything. The power went out, and I'm like, oh, it must be a tree fell down on the wire, you know, just nothing big. And it happened to be right around the time the kids go to bed, so we put the kids to bed, and I sat downstairs and I said, oh, let's just go take a drive and see what, you know, maybe a tree came down, or talk to some people in town. And come up over that hill, going over the bridge, and the first thing I noticed was the steeple was gone.
And then I got a text. Steve, I heard there was a tornado in Westernville. And we just got out and walked down the street to see for ourselves. And by the time we got to the library, there were power poles down, there were trees down. It was clear, and there was nothing here. I had these old trees, and I keep thinking, whoa, a good blow would knock limbs off or knock them down, but nothing here. So we kept walking. By that time it was dark, and we walked down around the corner and immediately saw the church, and it was shocking to see what the steeple was down. It was just a mess.
Well, first of all, I'll never forget the day. Actually, me and some of my fellow officers were on our way to North Bay for a fire chiefs meeting. We ran into a storm, and we were kind of joking, you know, that's heading up to Westernville. And we went to the chiefs meeting, and we sat there, the meeting had started and all that, and we were sitting at the table kind of in the back of the room, and our pagers went off. And it alerted us to say that we believe that a tornado just went through the hamlet of the village. And we heard that, it was like, what did they say? You know, we really couldn't believe what we were hearing. Driving back to our community, we called in the 911 center, and it was like overwhelming. So we just said, we don't want to top the frequency in the air. We said that we'll be calling you, in a few minutes, and we'll get the information that way.
We are following breaking news in central Oneida County. A possible tornado touched down in the Westernville area just after 7:30 this evening.
7:15, the sky got all dark, and then loud wind, and then just some silence.
We were up at Racket Lake. We got a call early evening, and it was from our daughter. She went home, got to the end of town, and met this wall of water.
There was a house across the street from the church that had its roof off. It was evident that this was a pretty powerful tornado.
There was a Jeep in the road with the power lines on it, and trees were down, and people had just kind of standing there just in bewilderment.
So I called 911, and they're like, the fire department is at other emergencies. I said, no, you don't understand. Like, there is no Route 46 right now. The trees are all over Route 46. There's no traffic. I said, you need to send people here now.
There was one vehicle that a tree fallen on. The lady was trapped in the car. There was a gentleman pumping gas at the gas station, local gas station here, and he was literally holding on for dear life on the gas pumps.
We started to go by and see all the destruction on 46 and all of the personnel that were there to cleaning up all night, and had to park halfway home. And just the walk, you didn't know. You just didn't know what you were going to be looking at.
You just weren't prepared to see that you couldn't go down your driveway because trees were like this, and it was just, I guess your sense of place was just so distorted. You just couldn't put it in your mind, just couldn't take it all in, I think.
The devastation that was in the area with roads being blocked and stuff like that, it limited what we could do with our apparatus and where we could respond to people that were in need.
I just ran home, and my wife says I got a little bit of a fetish with chainsaws, but so went home and grabbed every sort of chainsaw and anything I could think of, chains, ropes, anything that we were going to need. And
so what are we looking at here? Because you have what's called a debris tracker. Explain to everybody at home what we see with these multicolors here.
It's looking inside of a thunderstorm and detecting different shaped objects in it. So if this shows up as red, that's rain. The rain droplets are about the same size. Right. But take a look at this image here. This green and yellow signature indicates debris that's being lofted into the thunderstorm. We call that a debris signature. Where that is right over that area of rotation. So this is the piece of evidence that's very different compared to the other tornadoes that we watch here across central New York. This is the very first time in our area that we've seen something like this take place, and that's why we have just a higher level of confidence that this tornado, it was likely on the ground.
There were transformers in the road smashed, lights smashed in the road, so I was like, I'm not going any further because I don't want to get electrocuted.
As you walk down the street, you could really begin to you could immediately see the path that the tornado had taken, because you could see where the library and the houses kind of diagonal from that, and then across to it. And then we walked by the manse, of course, a building we know very well, and there was devastation to the trees in the manse property. Manse itself looked okay, and turns out it was, but the trees were everywhere down. Big trees.
Ironically, I was out of town. Then about 9:30 at night, we had gotten home from dinner, and I noticed that my cell phone had 35 messages on it, and everybody asking me if I was okay.
My impression was, this is really severe. I was thinking we won't have the power on for a week because of all the power poles toppled and whatnot.
I didn't realize that the storm was as bad as it was that evening. All I remember is that there was such torrential rain, and wind, and I'm going, oh my God, this is terrible.
And you look at the church and you go like, what will it take to restore this?
Went and got my wife. She goes to bed when the kids go to bed, got her up and said, you might have to get the spare room ready. I said, it's bad. She goes, like, how bad? I go, it's bad.
National Grid, Northland Communication, Spectrum, State DOT, County DOT, the town, law enforcement, and to assist us in clearing the roads up. My two main concerns were opening up Route 46 and opening up the Stokes-Westernville Road.
And I was able to get in my side yard because basically the storm really hit on Main Street from us north.
It was dangerous because you had, 30, 40, 50 poles down on Main Street with wires and transformers in the road, and you have to go to somebody's house, and it's at dark. It's challenging.
They felt the tornado came down off the hills at Woods Valley, and because Woods Valley sustained damage, and then on the corner of 46 and Gifford Hill Road, it took all the trees. And it took all the trees here. It came between this building and the little house next door, and it moved across the road and crossed right over on top of the church and took the steeple. Went through the cemetery, and then it turned and went up the Mohawk River.
It went from southwest to northeast.
Okay, and that's right up Route 46 and right through Westernville.
I didn't really get a full picture of the devastation until that morning because it was dark, it was raining, and you really couldn't see, in a distance. The devastation and getting the full scope of what happened was shocking. What I could see at night was nothing compared to what it was in the daytime.
105-mile-per-hour winds.
Fast-moving and powerful, the damage is extensive.
I came down, I was there around 5:30 in the morning, and National Grid had gotten the road cleared up there, and they were setting the poles. They started having the three-phase laid by then.
My name is Gretchen Marrow. I've been in this church 40 years. Been involved with the church in many ways. The first thing, when we drove into the parking lot, and there was the church with the steeple torn off and gone and splayed across the lawn and the driveway. And we got out of the car to examine it, and immediately you were hit with the odor of the bat guano that was in the steeple, because there are bats in the belfry, as they say. So, but it was devastating because the top of the steeple was on the ground, and the top of the church was just a black square of where the steeple used to be. It was kind of scary. And you felt as a member for so long that you were like stricken by the whole situation.
We've been members of that church for ever since we've been 45 years, ever since we've been here. And we ran the youth group for years, and I was the choir director for 25 years. And so it's a very meaningful church to us, and it's an epicenter
for the community,
in the community.
I think.
And so, I'm the town historian, and from that standpoint, to see, one of our prime 1818 structures be that hurt was just amazing.
Initially, some of the things that had to be done was tarping off all the open holes into the church. One over the steeple area, and then one over the sanctuary area. So those areas were constantly raining in rain, in one of the rainiest summers we ever had.
And I put in a call to Tim Hogan for guidance. He's a structural engineer. He helped us design our addition. We went and I purchased every big tarp I could get, and then we used the big ones up to get the roof tarped.
We did not, until the next morning, see the inside of the church. But when you went inside the addition, you could see where the steeple had crashed right through the roof, right through the ceiling, and so forth. In fact, we were looking for the bell. We couldn't find the bell, big, massive bell. And it turns out that it was in the roof structure, the truss structure, but it hadn't fallen through. And then you could see in the sanctuary, in the main body of the church, you could see there was quite a bit of water damage. Water had penetrated, and so forth.
So that was part of the damage, but also in the Bicentennial Hall addition, because it had the bell crash through and open up that whole roof, it was raining in there constantly. And it caused the floors to buckle. Of course, it brought down the sheetrock and the insulation, just all kinds of damage. One of our church members ran in right after the tornado came through, pulled all the cushions off the pews, took all the Bibles out, all the hymn books out, anything she could drag into the chapel, the only room that was not damaged by the tornado. And incidentally, all the rain that was coming in was going directly into the cellar, into the dining room, and so that was damaging that as well.
My name is Robert McMullen. I've lived in this town for 68 years now. My mother-in-law calls me up and tells me trees across the road fell down. Well, I said I better go down and check on it, and I went down to her house and I looked at the orchard across the road from her house. There wasn't a tree standing there. And from then I ventured over here in the cemetery, and that was a disgrace over here. We had 26 stones tipped over, about 12 trees we lost, and we lost the roof of the building, our storage building and stuff. Fence was gone, a lot of the fence we had to replace.
It was kind of chaotic for a little bit with, a lot of people cutting trees and doing some stuff, and it was a little sketchy, and a couple of times we had to ask some people that we appreciate the help. But you know, we got it from here. It's
The strength of Mother Nature. But there was a tree that was in here, and you could see the bark that was like twisted right off of it. Look at all these trees that are uprooted, and the bases are taller than me.
I was devastated. I mean, our little town, you know, and just, I mean, we've had some floods, but this tornado, it was just devastating. I was devastated for our neighbors. The church over here had a lot of ruins on Stokes Westernville Road. Neighbors lost their roofs. There were some people that didn't have power for days.
When did you sleep?
I don't even know. I think we were like 2 or 3 days with no sleep.
Quite a bit of the beauty of this village is in its kind of bucolic setting, and a lot of that was gone. It still is today. Trees down and a tangle of wood debris and whatnot. And people to this day are still thinking, how will we ever return the ambiance of this environment to its original state? I mean, it will take decades.
WKTV, they're very instrumental in getting newscasts out to the public and stuff.
Yeah, the next morning, and it was pretty much game on, and just trying to help people out and start cutting. And it's a small community, and that's the beauty of living in a small area. Everybody came down and wanted to help.
Like we didn't have any water in the village, so we distributed water for 2 days to all the people in the community. We opened up our facility. Food that people brought was amazing. We made it interstate disaster, and it allowed us to get like entities like to get the resources from Delta Lake State Park. So we used their personnel. We used like their dump trucks, their payloaders, their skidsters, whatever resources they had. In addition to that, we had so much food that we called in for a refrigeration truck from the state, which they brought it here. We opened up our doors as a community. We fed them 3 meals a day.
What was fun is to see the resurrection of the steeple, all symbolism included.
And we went over when they put the steeple on,
Yep.
and I think the thing that I was so excited to see were all the people stopping to look to see that the steeple was there, and the pride of the workmen that did it.
Oh.
They were so proud that they tried to put it back the way that it should be.
Mhm.
And that was just...
And you now you started healing. When that got back up, you knew things were going to be okay. Yeah. Now you started healing. When that got back up, you knew things were going to be okay.
The outpouring of support from other churches, from people we don't even know in terms of financial contributions, was amazing.
What are we going to do? Where are we going next? Because we can't worship in the church. And then our initial response was, let's do a Zoom meeting for the first Sunday. After that, we went to Delta Lake Conference Center for several weeks until we realized we really needed a bigger space. And so we went off to try the fire hall in Westernville, and that proved extremely good.
So it was a little tricky getting it all collaborated and everything, but everyone told me it wasn't possible. So we made some pretty amazing progress. The insurance company says they didn't expect us to be this far along in 2 to 3 years, and I refused to sign a contract until they agreed to get us in Christmas Eve, and they pulled it off.
The first service back in the church was Christmas Eve, full of carols and happiness that we were together again.
Isn't this amazing, huh? You'd seen this church, and many of you did, in July and August and September. You would have said, no way can we possibly be back in this church in 2021, right? It was unbelievable. And around late October, November, Will began to give a few little hints. You had to look hard to find them, that maybe we'll be back for Christmas Eve. And through his determination, his leadership, and so many people, as he well knows, contributed to the effort. Here we are. It's great.
So it was, yes, it was a Christmas miracle, yes.
So pleased to see all of you here in the sanctuary and all of you joining us from Zoom this evening on this wonderful Christmas Eve. It's so lovely to be back in our sanctuary again, and we have so much for which to be thankful. So thank you so much. It has been an interesting ride, and someone said as we came over here a day or two after the tornado, hey, look, your name's on the building out there. I said, well, that didn't fall off, so maybe that's a sign that I should stay.
I just remember the power going out the day of the tornado, and we're thinking, gosh, I wonder why the power went out. And we drove a little ways, and we seen a tree down, and we thought, oh, there's a tree down right there. And then we were trying to get down into the village to see what was going on down in the village, and the roads were just impassable. But as far as us knowing, it was social media where we figured out that it was a tornado, and we had no power.
And the flood was July 19th, so about 10 days after.
10 days after.
This one behind us is the Lansing Kill, and under the bridge is the Mohawk, and they meet right here on the corner. In my personal experience, I was actually coming home from work, and I got a call from one of my friends, and they said, your road is flooding, get home now. And I'm thinking, I've lived here my whole life, you know, oh yeah, little water, not gonna hurt. And I had tried to come that way, my normal route, and I couldn't even get to my aunt's house, which is right at, you know, one of the first houses right on the road. I couldn't even get past, the water was just coming right over the road. So they were turning people around.
It was exactly 1 month later, August 19th, and same thing. It started raining, and the rain clouds never moved, and the water was just rising as fast as it could go. And the fire department came again and said, you have to clear out until, the water recedes. And so we did.
You looked behind the house in the ravine here, the high water area for the lake, and it was different color. And sure enough, it was the water that had backed up farther than we'd ever seen it since we lived here. And we looked across the street, and the whole lot that we owned across the street with the house on it was totally underwater and rising. And so when we went over there, it was almost like it wasn't awful, because we've already been through much worse already, right? So it was all relative. It gave that relativity factor in there. But then we walked inside, and you heard water rushing into the basement of this place, and we had 4 feet of water in that following the tornado.
My grandparents live on the other side of the bridge, and they actually brought boats in to evacuate them because they were trapped in between the water that was flowing. And like I said, you don't know how deep it is, Like I said, I grew up here my whole life. I've never seen anything like that. So the first flood, we were not prepared. The second flood, we knew when we started seeing it coming through the back field that it was time to go, and it was shortly after the fire department come and said, you got to evacuate. Because water, it has no mercy,
It'll teach you, though, you think you're in control, but I do believe Mother Nature is in control. Because it'll teach you. Pay attention.
It was scary, it really was.
When you reflect back on it, nobody got hurt during the storm, and nobody got hurt after the storm.
This tornado really does remind us of how humble we are and how small we are and how we all have to get along. It makes you feel pretty humble and grateful.
Yeah, totally grateful.
So, yep.
I think it affected the community in a good type of way. I mean, I'm not saying that it was a good thing, but it kind of brought us all, together. It was very devastating, but we moved mountains when we were in the midst of it,
The silver lining was definitely the community coming together, the other towns. I had towns calling me and saying, we have heavy equipment for you, we can come.
To get that response from other people that you didn't even know, it was amazing. And we probably had 30, 40 chainsaws running every day for like 2 weeks. Nobody got hurt.
This is people who are aware that we're suffering a loss here and damage and whatever, and wow, it was just remarkable to experience that. It's people helping people, which was that was uplifting.
And it was funny that one of the first things I found myself doing was like going around looking at trees and the species and being like, oh wait guys, let me mark that one out. There's some value in that one. And I said, guys, just cut it here, cut it there, just push it out of the way. And to try to get something out of this. Obviously, the one tree's not going to pay for all the damage, but at the end of the day, we hauled a bunch of trees out, and we got a couple $100s for this landowner, a couple $100s for that landowner, but it added up to a couple $1,000s, which was small in the whole token of it, but I think that people appreciated that they got a check for something.
Yeah, it was a long process to get everything cleaned up, but everybody pitched in, and it's just amazing.
Ron and Jody Kellogg from Kellogg Memorials in Rome come up and helped us reset the stones. They did it for nothing, and so we got the cemetery looking pretty good, about the best it's ever looked in the last couple of years. Everybody says how nice it looks.
But the people coming out to help, that kind of blew me away.
That's the best thing about the tornado. Nobody got hurt.